before trek, you're always thinking, why are we doing this? And then after trek, like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
A lot of effort. It's good.
Oh, there's so much time put into that. Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, you're 24th. Go to the cabin.
We did. It was really nice. We woke up yesterday, it was 57. And when we left, it was only 64. We left about 2 o'clock.
That's nice. So you're still in a jacket.
Had a big fire going. It poured from probably 11:30 till 1:30, 2 o'clock. Just torrential downpour. It was awesome. So
Yeah.
Michael's just built a big fire.
Cool.
It was nice.
Yes.
So for me, a snake means no mice and rain means I can have a fire. Small things in my life make me happy. Ooh, we did find a snake. First snake I've ever seen up there. It's just a little water snake, but. So I have no idea who's supposed to be here and who's not.
Will won't be here. When? That's all I know.
I don't know. Nicole, if you can hear us. Is, yeah. Have you heard from Norfelt or Jake?
I have not. I haven't heard one way or another. I did know that Will was not going to be there, but I hadn't heard from them.
Okay.
Mayor, we had heard from Lars that he was getting ready to leave town, but we had the impression he would be here tonight, but we're not 100% certain.
Okay, thank you. My, somebody cleans up. Looking good, dude. I never see you in that outfit. Has anybody here seen him in this outfit? Okay.
Just my thoughts.
Well, I just myself. All right, I guess we will begin. It is, let's see, we'll call to order the study meeting of the West Valley City Council. It is July 26th, 2022. It is 4:30 and we are meeting in the multi-purpose room of West Valley City Hall. We have 3 members of the council excused: Councilman Whetstone, Councilman Norfelt, and Councilman Fitzmanu. The other 4 of us are here. We have our minutes of July 19th. I'll turn it to the council for any adjustments or a motion on the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those pass. Do we have any changes, Mr. Pyle, to tonight's agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Were there any questions on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our first public hearing we'll have next week. Well, in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. How many weeks is it really going to be? 2. I don't know what day it is. Okay, 2 weeks. And it's regarding the budget, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Pyle.
Thank you, ma'am. So we don't have any new information for the budget. We do have a presentation prepared for the night of the budget adoption, as we always do. And the numbers are the same since June. Nothing has changed. So that's all we have on that.
Well, is there going to be a copy of that in our agenda?
The presentation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have it a week ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody have any questions for Mr. Powell? Scott does.
Just to, I don't know how this works, but I think we're going to, are we gonna adopt please put to vote the tax, levying the tax
Yeah, so
in 2 weeks also?
it's all one motion, correct or incorrect?
That's correct, ma'am. There's just one procedure. You're adopting the budget, or you're not adopting the budget, or you're modifying the budget.
And then that just automatically kicks in the tax increase.
Correct, because the way that worked through the process was, and I'll go all the way back to February involving the county. So the county each year requires you to send them a notice of whether you intend to hold a hearing for the purpose of considering whether you're considering increasing property taxes or not. We send that letter every year because we're going to be doing the judgment levy one way or the other, whether we do anything else. Then we go through the budget proposal process, as you know, and you all were part of that as we went through the spring. You adopt the tentative in May. At that point, with the adopted tentative budget, we have the property tax amount, which we submit to the county. The county gives us back the certified tax rate sometime around the end of June. And then the final adoption date with the budget hearing, the public hearing notices, and the tax notices in the paper and media sources are set. And then you just adopt it at that point as the budget.
Okay.
So just a little further definition, there's no like separate motion or separate item for a property tax increase consideration. It's just part of the budget.
So wondering if it's possible, maybe you could put together a little summary of if we didn't increase the taxes, what that looks like program-wide, citywide.
Okay, so if there's two things you could be really sort of alluding to there. One, what would we do for the budget? And as we discussed through the years, I've already made that backup proposal, which would be you'd take 3 million-ish, 3.3 or whatever it is out of the fund balance, and you'd cover it that way for another year. And that's what my proposal is. That's what my proposal would be at that time. And that's what I've proposed through the months leading up to it. If you're asking, okay, if I didn't do either of those options and how would it affect the programming, that would be a whole nother question. I'd have to go back and come up with some sort of a what if scenario that, you know, we could cut this or we could cut that.
That's the question that I have. So.
Well, I haven't considered that. There are multiple ways you can take care of that scenario. You can do a by department sort of a consideration. You could do a straight across percentage reduction. Those are both options that we've done in the past, way earlier in the process, obviously. But those are the sorts of things that you would be looking at doing.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll now move to resolution 22-125, and we'll turn the time over to Mr. Johnson.
Mayor, I just wanted to note that Councilman Fiti Samani just joined us.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dan Johnson, Public Works Director. Today, this is a cooperative agreement with the Utah Department of Transportation regarding Mountain View Corridor. Really, this is kind of finalizing a lot of things that have been in the works for a long time, but the main push or piece of this agreement is the agreement that between the city and UDOT to trade properties. We have certain roads that are dedicated and owned by the city that now have a freeway sitting on top of them, and they have certain properties that they're going to convey to the city. The largest of which being the large detention basin that they purchased for flood control purposes, and needs to remain with flood control purposes, but we will have the ability to use it for recreational purposes on that parcel as well. That's just west of Mountain View Corridor and south of Parkway Boulevard. So You will see additional real estate transactions in the future that are these transactions, but this is really just the agreement to do those transactions.
So any questions? So remind me, their flood land, which we're gonna put a Ninja Park on?
No,
this a
this one does
different
not
one?
have, this is not the Ninja
This
Park.
is different.
That Ninja
location.
Park, I believe, was at 4100 South and 60th West. This parcel of land is immediately
thought it was on
north of the
41 and 60th.
Meadowlands property that the city owns that we use for flood control purposes as well. And
Got
so
it,
it'll be
okay.
kind of combining two flood control parcels that will have a relatively large potential for recreational use.
Sorry, I thought I knew where it was, so I didn't even look at the map.
You're okay?
That'll get me.
So by Mountain View and Parkway.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now turn it to our communications items and the Chamber West update. I'll have Nate Webster come up.
Good evening, Nate Webster with the RDA. One of the reasons I'm here today is actually to talk a little bit about what I do as the retention specialist for the RDA and the toolbox. One of the toolbox resources that I have, which is actually an amazing resource, is actually Chamber West. So since my last presentation, and some of the new council members are here, wanted to touch base a little bit on how I get in touch with all of our businesses in West Valley City. And the first is any business joint comes here, does a business license, they receive an email from me personally that invites them to the city and outlines different resources that we have, items that they can get involved in, et cetera. And if they need anything outside of EMS, police, or the fire department, I would hope to and expect their phone call to come to me so I can help them navigate, because the last thing we want them to do is, it's like calling into your cell phone company. We don't want them calling in and being handled all over the place. That let me be their bulldog and their gopher. And we have found that to be a great success in this position. The second thing is they get different letters and updates that take place in our community from me. We also do in-person visits. I do that specifically. Sometimes I can have as many as 10 or 12 visits in a day. Sometimes there are fewer. But there's a personal touch in meeting with these owners and executives of the businesses. In that process, one of the things we do is I'm very in touch with what's going on sales tax wise with our businesses, our employee counts, the jobs that are being created or oftentimes cut in our community. And so we help them navigate some of those processes. If someone wants to shrink, we help them find a location here in West Valley. If they want to grow, our team is there to help them grow and show them maybe some of the best interested in places that they could relocate, which has been a huge success. But in that, in all these discussions that take place, the reason I'm here is actually to talk about Chamber West and what they have to offer. And when the time is right in these discussions, I do promote Chamber West because not many know that we have a local chamber. A lot of questions come up. What does the chamber offer? How can I get involved? Who are some of their clients, et cetera? And so I'm involved in many of the committees with Chamber West that include their board of governors, their legislative affairs. We started a tourism and hospitality committee that's been extremely successful through COVID. There's a small business development group, a professional development group, not to mention they have many events that include their gala, their golf tournament, job fairs, grand openings, re-grand openings. And this is really where our chamber really shines, are in these events to help our local business leaders get involved in what's going on in legislative affairs, specifically in our community. And we find that to be a really great success. But as I mentioned, I love to, when the time is right, promote chamber at the time. If I may share an experience that I had with a local business owner just recently, was very turned off to the chamber, didn't really want to be a part of it, had been a member of the Salt Lake Chamber for years. As I took the opportunity to share about the local chamber and how they could be involved, this gentleman appreciated my approach because it was a non-sales approach to them, just very informational and factual about what they were. And at the right time, I introduced him to Chamber West staff And in our discussions, they became a member of the chamber down the road. But this gentleman appreciated the non-sales approach and how the city had the connection to the chamber, and we promoted them and handed them off in a very professional manner that was non-invasive and non-sales approach. But this particular member he's great with the chamber. He's very involved in the different committees and the events, and he appreciates it. So that's just one avenue that we do with the chamber and have that as a resource in our toolbox. But I'll continue to maintain our relationships with our businesses and promote the available resources that we have. One of those was with COVID. And if I can share one more example, when COVID hit, we were very well prepared from the RDA standpoint because of our leadership. And our businesses saw that we were gaining up to the minute information on how our businesses were doing. We were able to provide that to management, that they knew the pulse of our city and where it was going. And so we continue to maintain those relationships and build new ones as our businesses do change, as does the staff in those agencies or those divisions. So just wanted to make you all aware of Chamber West and how great they are. They continue to do new support. We just received a new partner in their staff who came from one of our hotels that was just recently hired on their team. And that's Monica, who will help bridge and be a partner with us in the city for Chamber West. And that's a new position. So thank you.
So since we have plenty of time, do you mind sharing with them the catalytic converter success?
Yeah. So we had, for those of you who don't know, we had catalytic converter issues where people were going into our businesses after hours and cutting out catalytic converters of box trucks, employee vehicles, et cetera, even during daylight hours. And so we were very in touch. The businesses were actually contacting me. And as we were talking about this, Barbara and the Legislative Affairs Committee decided to push a bill or help promote this on Capitol Hill, how to get more awareness, get real life, real in time scenarios that were happening to our businesses, and use that as an avenue to promote. And the bill was actually ended up passing to get that more vision in our state. And Chamber West was one tool in making that possible on Capitol Hill.
Yep, they see a problem, they do help correct it if they can.
Yeah, they do.
So,
And they have a very good pulse on the city as well. We meet with them frequently.
great.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for your
thanks.
time.
All right, we'll now move on to the KPI discussion. And I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Harmon.
KPI reporting was a subject we discussed at our strategic planning meeting in January. It's taken us almost 7 months to get to this point, but hopefully we're getting close. Attached is a PDF to your agenda that shows what the KPIs that the council selected as their top 1, 2, or 3 KPIs that we want to track. So I put them in a report. Hopefully this will be easy for staff to fill out and for us to read and review, but open to discussions and comments. We can see if there's anything we want to have changed, or if we want to just move forward with it, and we can change things on the fly as we go, as we see needs for changes.
Okay.
Any thoughts?
I thought it was very well put together. So thank you for doing all the heavy lift on that one.
You're welcome.
So anybody in the room or online have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I don't have any objections to the specific KPIs or indicators that have been proposed here. I think an issue with, not an issue in a bad way, but something that we're going to have to figure out is the presentation or some kind of a dashboard how often we want that updated and presented, those kinds of questions.
Okay. So what are you thinking would be appropriate as far as,
I guess the question for me is how often are these already being presented, and are they already in, a spreadsheet or a dashboard format that that staff could simply just put into one place where we could see them all at once and just use those intervals for updating that staff are already doing, because we don't want to, add an extra step or an extra burden. We know that this kind of information is already being tracked in one way or another. So my preference would be to just find alignment with the way that management or staff are already tracking these kinds of data, and then just find a convenient place to put them all in one dashboard. Would be my preference.
okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Either way, we can get a report on it.
Yeah. I was just making sure Councilman Norfelt didn't have any comments. So what do you think the next step should be? In fact, maybe I should ask this first. Mr. Pyle, have you looked at these to know how many you've already got all the answers to? Maybe Mr. Pyle's not there. Oh, there he is. You're talking, but you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's
Yes,
okay.
I have looked through the list, and now that they've been narrowed down to the summary number of questions, and there's nothing on here that we don't produce or couldn't come up with pretty easily. The only further direction and clarification I would need, in one way, kind of goes along the way with what Jake asked. I'll give you an example. Probably on most of these, I have further clarification questions that I would just come back later and ask what you all mean. And I could do that by email. I could do it in study meeting or whatever format you would like. But some of them, to that very question that Jake asked, is really just more of a what exactly do you want to see? So like, for example, the timing looks pretty clear to me. Some of these Scott is set up as monthly, some of them are quarterly. I'll use the P&L as an example, the very first one. So we don't do profit and loss statements. We do financial statements. We already publish those on a quarterly basis with all of the financial data in summary form that we use for reporting, and that's already submitted to you. If I look at this as an example of how we would, come up with some sort of central place to report that data in a way that you would want to see it, I guess my question would be, given that there's like one cell on any given unit here, what is it exactly in the financial statements that you would want to see? Do you know that? Have you guys looked at those financial statements? Is that something that you have determined amongst yourselves? Maybe Scott has an idea. And you don't have to answer now. That's sort of rhetorical, but that's the same sort of style of question I've got all through most of these. Some of them are really simple and self-explanatory, like the number of press releases. We know how many of those we do every month, and there's no problem interpreting that. But others of them are I just have clarification questions. Like I could give you another example. In Public Works, there's one that says number of projects. Well, what's a project? So I can come back and answer or ask all of those questions in some other way. I just wanted to not bring that up until you all had decided that these were the ones that you wanted to get reporting on.
Okay. That works. So yeah, I think the next step then would be best to have you ask the questions you're not clear on. And then Scott can look at those, or as a group, we can look at those and narrow it down to make it easy, because we don't want it to become a burden on staff.
Sure. And yeah, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate the point that Jake made, and Scott made good effort here to kind of consolidate this and make it in some sort of an easily reportable format. So yeah, I don't think it'll be that big of a burden from a time standpoint. It'll just be sort of making sure we're clear up front and then figuring out a little mechanism to consolidate. We could use this form for that matter, if that works for everybody.
Okay. Did you have another question?
No, it's fine.
Okay,
Just wait till we get clarification from Wayne and then we can.
keep going.
Yep.
Okay,
forward.
that works. Okay, seeing no other questions, correct? Okay, we will move on to the council calendar. Are there any questions on that one? So on the second, we'll have no city council meeting. We'll have block parties to go to and move forward that way. And then we'll meet again on the 9th and have the main thing will be the budget hearing, so.
Got that list of block parties in the email today, so
Oh, good.
it's only 3 pages.
Well, you know, that's about the average, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's that many nights, you know. Well, if they're all in one night, you
Not
get
all
to,
in-
yeah. Where they're spread out, you get multiple dinners.
You only eat so many hot dogs.
I know. But hot dogs are one of my favorite foods, so. Okay. No other questions on that one? Do we have any potential future agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the council reports. Mr. Christensen, did you have anything this week?
No.
Okay. No? I have one. I went to Grinders on Tuesday. Talked to Mo. I was wondering when we walked in why the line was taking so long. Yeah, Brian and I talked to Mo for 5 minutes. So that's why he was talking to everybody. They ran out of food pretty much late Thursday. And it was just like a goodbye line on Friday. Mo and his wife were just sitting there telling everybody goodbye. And so he's got something the middle of August, then he's gonna put the place up for sale. So if anybody wants a restaurant, there's a few trying to figure out how to save it, so. But that will move forward. That was sad to see go. But. Okay, do we have a need for a closed session tonight, Mr. Pyle?
No, ma'am, thanks.
Okay, then that leaves us just one more motion. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned.